Hello, welcome to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting the right way, with God at the center, with Judeo-Christian values and real-world first-hand experience. Today, I think it's going to be a little bit of a mixed bag. Going to talk about the state of the firearms industry right now, what's going on, and a little bit of a fun episode because there's a lot of not so fun stuff going on in the world right now. And there's plenty of that getting bombarded everywhere else. So I thought we'd talk about some fun stuff today. Especially if you like guns and we get together as men and talk about guns. Who doesn't like that, right? If you want more, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I like this, I want to check out some more, goodshepherdtraining.com, goodshepherdtraining.com. That's your one-stop shop. If you want some cool merchandise, cool shooting shirt, a cool manly metal drinking mug, if you want to help support this message, Patreon link on there. There's some insider content on there, different shooting drills, practical shooting drills. Things like my trapping kit for when I was a professional trapper, what I carried on there, things like that for the patrons. Mostly just because you want to help support the message and get it out there. As you know from listening, I don't take any sponsors. I don't take any corporate sponsorship or anything like that. What was it? Used to be on PBS when we were kids, supported by viewers like you. And I appreciate you guys. And if you don't want to support that way, don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast, a couple of stars, write a review while you're listening. Doesn't take very long. Another way to get other men to check out the podcast. With that, guys, I'll plug in the bio. If you want to skip it, skip around 3 minutes and 45 seconds from where it starts. First and foremost, I am a servant of God, preacher, a fisher of men. God is number one in my life, and everything that I do in this podcast is no different, and I don't apologize for that. A little bit about me in the background. I grew up, I guess what you would consider a heathen. Didn't grow up a Christian, but I grew up in the southeastern United States, what most would consider very poor. Hunting and fishing and shooting. Joined the Marine Corps at 17, did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After my combat tours in Iraq, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps under Mojave Viper. I also served in law enforcement for several years in LAPD. I worked patrol assignments and more specialized assignments, where by God's grace, He got me through some nasty places in this world of war zones and some of the nastiest streets in the country. Not because I am better, because God chose to have mercy on me and had a purpose for me, and I'm thankful for that. After my time in law enforcement, I was a private contractor for federal government, for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify, doing private contracting work. I'm very much involved in guns and gunfighting. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. I should say my primary MOS is in both branches of the military or infantry, as of one sort or another. Specialized infantry in the Marine Corps and an MOS that no longer exists. I started competition shooting even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I won my first gold medal even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. I've been blessed by God with the talents He's given me to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I've won most of my competitions in rifle and pistol, but I've also competed in archery and shotgun and even muzzleloader, knife throwing, hatchet throwing. I've competed in all that. I've also been a professional big game hunter and guide. Like I said, I grew up hunting and fishing and shooting. I've done it to put meat on the table because I like to put food on the table with the talents God's given me. I don't apologize for that. I've done it as a professional hunter and guide. I've slain all manner of beast and guided for all manner of beast. Bear and wolf and elk and deer, mule deer, whitetail deer. I've slain ram and fallow deer and countless animals. And I don't apologize for that either. FBI certified, firearms instructor, NRA, and a bunch of other 3-letter government agency certifications. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've been blessed to be the commander of a tactical team, an SRT, special response team, in a large metropolitan area, where our primary job was to stop active shooters. But again, first and foremost, I'm a servant of God, called by God to share the good news, preacher, a fisher of men. With that, we will roll into the day's topic. All right, men, to the topic at hand. A little bit about the gun industry today. It's going to kind of talk off the cuff with the tribe here, with the listeners, about what I'm seeing. As you might know, my current full-time job, this is not my full-time job. I record this as I am now at the dog park or at the laundromat or whatever. On my one day off, I have a week to record podcasts. My full-time job is that I'm general manager for a firearms and training company, which, gives me a decent insight into what's going on in the firearms and training industry. We'll talk a little bit about that today. I guess first and foremost, we'll talk about ammo. If you need to stock up on ammo or feel like you need to stock up on ammo, I would buy it now. I can't see the future. Maybe ammo will drop, 10% in the next couple of weeks or something like that. But I really see the potential for it to go crazy again and to double in price or triple in price, just like gas might, or to get to the point where you can't get it. So if you need 9mm, if you need 22, if you need 12 gauge, if you need, whatever, 308, buy a case of it. The price of metal is going up and inflation. Just buying a case of ammo that you're going to shoot anyway right now, just consider that like giving yourself a raise. Because if you're going to have to buy it, buying it one box at a time is just kind of silly. If you're an actual shooter, a gunfighter, somebody that practices, buy one box and a couple months later you're going to buy a different box of something else, and where's your gun shooting and sighting your gun in again and all that stuff. It doesn't make sense. Buy a case of it if you can afford it. If you can afford it, don't take ramen noodles out of your kid's mouth to buy ammo. If you're blessed with enough disposable income and you think you should get some more ammo, I would get it now. Like I said, maybe it'll get a little bit cheaper in the near term, but it has the potential to go away in the near term or to double in price or triple in price. If there's a certain ammo, a certain load that you want, set an alert for when it's in stock, and then if you can, buy some. I stocked up a couple of years ago, and I'm not a hoarder, I'm a shooter. I continue to shoot. I haven't done competitions really seriously in a few years because, I didn't stockpile to the point where I could shoot 1,000 rounds a week. I stockpiled to the point where I could practice legitimately, and a couple weeks ago I bought a 1,000-round case, not from Patreon money, from money I was blessed with, disposable income, to get the exact same load delivered, I believe, for $189, and I paid $400, and that was the best price I had seen in a couple of years. But it doesn't matter what the ammo used to be. The days of $4.99 Winchester White Box are probably gone for the foreseeable future. I don't foresee the future, but I don't see that coming back. Forget about what it used to cost. If it's available and you need it now, get it now, because it may go up quite a bit in price in the future. Last time we had a big ammo shortage, I lived through it. 22. Used to be, I would just drive from my house and stop at a Walmart on the way to go shooting and just buy a brick of ammo, and I just assumed that it was going to be there. This is before the whole 08, market crash, baby ammo apocalypse compared to this one. Or I would just go, and when it was my training day to go shoot, I would just go to Walmart and there would just always be 22 there. Now I'll buy a brick and shoot it that day. Those days are kind of gone. The ammo now while you can get it. Last time it was 22 that really took the longest to come back. And I don't know why, but this time, I have some theories why. This time 9mm was the longest to come back. It was the hardest of the major calibers to get. And I think because there are so many new shooters, and that's great. And me in the firearms industry, I was working on data to make a spreadsheet, which would make my wife happy. She loves data and spreadsheets and things. But of all the guns we sold and who we sold them to, and the vast majority of guns that we sell are handguns and 9mm. And I don't know why. I don't think that's the best choice for most new gun owners. I really don't. But that's what most people that are getting into guns get. They think a handgun is less intimidating for some reason or easier to hide or whatever the reason is. I don't think it's a good choice for a first gun, but I think a lot of people get those as first guns because, again, it's just psychologically, people and women especially think that a smaller gun is less intimidating, even though it's harder to shoot and less effective. But that aside, many new shooters are getting handguns and getting 9mm the most ubiquitous. Far, far, far and away more popular than 40 and 45. So that, I think, contributed to 9mm being the hardest to get. That being said, right now you can get it. You can go on Ammo Seek, you can look it up, and you can get it. So if you need it, I would get it. Talking about ammo, some lessons learned. It seemed like early on in this ammo apocalypse, the common calibers became hard to get, and the less common ones stuck around for a while. 30-30, 44 Magnum, things like that. But as it wears on, I think the manufacturers are pressing on making, the common calibers, 308, 223, 9mm. So those are coming back. And now they haven't been making the 30-30s, the 45-70s, the 44 Magnums, the 357 Magnums, and now those are the hardest to get. I haven't seen those from any of my distributors in months. So just a lesson learned for if we go into another downturn in ammo, whatever you want to call it. If you can find those rare calibers and you need them and you shoot them, then get them when you can get them, because when ammo is hard to get, the manufacturers are going to make a ton of the ammo that they can sell, and they can pretty much always sell as much as they can make right now, 9mm, 223, 308, whatever. So get that when you can get it. Or if things come back a little bit more to normal, stock up on those calibers when they're affordable, because again, when it hits, get those in the beginning of the downturn, because they'll probably still be available. But as it wears on, the people that need those buy those, and they might not make them for quite a while. So just a little lesson, a little pro tip in there, if that helps you. And hopefully ammo all comes back and everything's great, and 9mm goes back to $4.99 a box. That will be great. But I'm not going to tell you that's going to happen. I'm not going to pee in your face and tell you it's raining. So just keep that in mind. As far as firearms, I won't say who and I won't say what, but it is a major manufacturer, a major company rep came to talk to me this week. For one of the, like I said, anybody around the world, if I said this name, you'd be like, oh yeah, I know that name in guns. Even if you're not a gun person, you would probably know it. Almost certainly. It's like Coca-Cola. But I asked him, he was talking about all these cool new polymer striker-fired handguns and everything, and I was like, oh, that's cool, that's great. But what about, the 1911s? What about the revolvers? And to summarize what he said that we can pump out a ton of plastic polymer striker-fired handguns, in the $400 or $500 range. One employee can pump out a bunch of those guns pretty quickly. They don't have to be hand-fitted. They just get assembled pretty much. They run through the machines and get assembled. A revolver takes many, many hours and a very skilled laborer to hand fit those and get those. And if you've listened for any amount of time, you know that I like revolvers. I like, hammer fired guns. I like 1911s. But those take much more labor and much more skilled labor. So as a result of that, they're not really focusing on those. He said a couple of years out on being caught up on revolvers specifically. Because of that, why would they, if they're selling pretty much any gun they can make, why are they going to spend all that time making one gun when they can just pump out a bunch of polymer striker-fired guns that people that just want a gun? They're like, oh, that one looks good, feels good in my hand, I'm going to buy it. Why are they going to spend the time to hand fit and handcraft a revolver that applies to a very few number of people? Or a 1911 for the people that are really gun aficionados and want a fine heirloom quality passed down to your kid's handgun. From a business standpoint, that makes sense. It makes me a little sad from, a master shooter, a master at pistol craft. It makes me a little sad, but I get it from a business standpoint. I'm not gonna condemn them for making money or making the smart business decision. In order for them to be around, they have to make money. A thing that some other American gun companies that have gone bankrupt recently probably should have taken note of. But just a little discussion there about the handgun, firearms industry and the ammo situation right now. I will say that the AR market, at least where I am, seems to be very soft. It seems to be flooded. So if you've been looking at a good AR, if you've been looking at a time to pick up an AR, now is the time. I think we had a big push where lots of people wanted ARs and they bought them and a bunch of new companies opened up and started making ARs. And now pretty much everybody that wanted one has gotten them, and the market's kind of flooded. Prices right now are really good on ARs. There's so many options in ARs compared to, what there was 10 years ago. You can get stuff from the factory with a free floated handguard and, you know, the pistol configurations, or, and, you know, just about any configuration you want. You want key mod, you want M-lock, you want blah, 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 quick detach this, you know, Space Force, super light, ultra crazy, whatever. You can probably get it in an AR right now, and you can probably get it for a decent price. Because, like, again, the market's kind of flooded on those, supply and demand. So you've been eyeballing a good AR you want to upgrade from that old Bushmaster you have, or that, you know, that old, you know, Olympic Arms or whatever, just standard M4 configuration. You want something a little bit more modern. Or you don't have an AR at all, I would say, look at those right now. Now is a good time. We all know well, we don't all know, but we all taste a little bit of inflation right now. And I think that parking your money in a firearm right now is probably a better bet than leaving it in a bank account. And I don't say that lightly. And you know, I grew up poor. I tend to default to saving money, but when it's every day you look in your bank account and that money value is getting chipped away, you know, putting that in a firearm that will almost always keep or go up in value. You know, now is a good time to buy those ARs. Now is a good time to buy PMags or whatever. You know, I like Amen 2 mags. PMags are kind of standard. I like Amen 2 a little bit better. But, you know, now's the time to stop up on mags. Mags are cheap. Ammo might not be the cheapest right now, but mags are cheap. ARs are cheap. So take advantage of what you can get when you can get it. Shotguns right now are unbelievably awesome in the market. And I hate to say this because I love America and I love American-made stuff, but the Turkish-made shotguns, not the cheap Chinese copies, but the shotguns made in Turkey. I mean, Weatherby makes their shotguns in Turkey right now. Weatherby. But you can get really good Turkish-made shotguns because the patents are out on the 870 and the Ithacas and, you know, the classic American designs. They're being made in Turkey right now for far cheaper. You can get a freaking awesome, really good, better than our grandfathers had shotgun right now, made in Turkey. Let's say an 870 clone, like G-Force Arms or something similar, for under $200. That you can get that. That's unbelievable. That's at a great value. Not long ago, I went to Walmart and bought a break open shotgun for like $114 or 100 and something ish bucks. $100 for a firearm that will take anything in North America. Again, those Turkish-made shotguns, I have never seen one come back with a problem. The cheap Chinese clones, stay away from those. I have seen those break and come back with a problem. But anything, I don't know what it is, if it's that entire country, but any Turkish-made shotgun that I've seen has been fantastic and a fantastic value. You want like a classic firearm right now, like an over and under shotgun. Again, they have Turkish-made ones that are amazing in quality, amazing in fit and finish for $300, $400 for a nice over and under shotgun that in times and days of yore, even before inflation, cost you $2 or $3 grand. You can get for $300 or $400. If you've ever wanted one of those, now is probably the time. I don't pretend to know the geopolitical stage or what sanctions are coming or what trade is going to happen or what's going to be the cost in metals, whether precious metals or things like iron or whatever. But right now, you can get good Turkish-made shotguns, whether it's the exchange rate, whether it's the labor costs, or a combination of a bunch of things. You can get good Turkish-made shotguns right now for ridiculous prices. So if you want one, or you think you might want one, or you just want a good place to investment to park money, those Turkish-made shotguns are pretty awesome. They make anything from, like I said, the classic over and unders to the more crazy modern ARs to even bullpup shotguns that are magazine fed. Bullpup 12 gauge compact would be. We just did a truck gun episode. Not my thing. I have way too much training on like my Benellis and my 870s, but a bullpup shotgun is a lot of firepower in a small package for a truck gun. We just talked about truck guns, and you can get those for under $500 all day long, and they have a really good reputation. They're being run in competition. Again, for what you get for the money, I think they're a ridiculously good value right now. Now let's talk about some guns I'd like to see made. Let's skip over the guns that are supposed to be being made, but again, like through manufacturers or not, because they're making it cheaper and more easy to pump out guns. But guns that I think would be really cool if they were made. First couple I'm going to talk about is going to revolve around a cartridge, the 5.7. Now, a lot of people know the 5.7 from obviously the FN57 and the P90, PS90, and the like tactical, ultimate, high capacity PDW stuff. And that's great. That's what that cartridge was designed for. Obviously, the Ruger 5.7 came out recently. I think if the pandemic hadn't hit right around the same time, maybe we would have seen a resurgence. But I think we're missing out on a big part of what the 5.7 could be. The 5.7 is basically a baby 223. It's a small bottleneck 22 caliber high velocity cartridge. It would be really cool to see that in some stuff other than high capacity tactical guns. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think it could branch out and be more than that. It's around the same overall length as a 22 Magnum. How cool would it be to have like a Henry or a Marlin lever action? You know, you could even have a box fed because it's that kind of cartridge, like a little baby Browning lever action BLR in 5.7 that took, box magazines that held, 10 rounds that were still probably flush fit. It would be a great little walking around varmint cartridge. That cartridge is super light. That's one of the advantages of it. You could get a pocket full of that stuff. Everybody talks about, how great the 22 is for the end of the world and the apocalypse. You can carry tons of ammo. The 5.7 is super light as well. Probably not as light as a 22 long rifle, round for round, but I bet it's not far off. And it might be even close because most 22 is, 38 to 40 grain. I think a lot of that is like 20-something to 30-something grain. And you have a little bit more case, but that doesn't weigh as much as the lead. So it may be pretty close round for round and a lot more powerful. Again, you could have a really cool lever action, magazine fed, handy little gun. How cool would that be for varminting, for, say, big, small game, raccoons, foxes, even up to coyotes? And again, if lever actions aren't your thing, a super small, handy bolt action rifle in a 5.7 would be really cool. If you could do it in a 22 mag and you could do it in a 223 and a mini action, you could do like a mini action for the 5.7, and that would be pretty neat. I'm talking about cool stuff that if I could just make it happen, I would. Red dot sights on handguns are kind of the way of the future. There is a ton of polymer striker-fired handguns coming out, cut for a red dot already. I wish that I could get them to make more like good quality steel, aluminum, metal frame, not striker fire, but hammer-fired, single-action handguns in optics-ready configurations. 1911's cut for a dot. A Beretta single action with an aluminum frame cut with a dot. They do make one, to their credit, that's double single. It would be really cool if they made the single action only one like that. But why more people are not making, 1911 or single action guns that are cut for a red dot, I don't know. Other than just speculation that they're just selling so many more polymer striker-fired handguns. Here's one. I really like the Winchester Model 94. It is a quintessential, iconic American firearm. And the only couple of things I wish that they would do to it, I wish that they would make it in stainless steel. Like a beautiful walnut or a birch stock with a stainless steel Winchester 94. And here's the big one. If they would make that in their normal 30-30, and if they would make a run of it in 35 Remington. Because I like Marlin, but they're a little bit heavier, and for the way I like to hunt, I do prefer the Winchester. I think they're handier, more of a carbine, pointing, stalking kind of gun. And the Winchester 94 and 35 Remington would be amazing. And in stainless steel would be really cool. And here's one. We did a whole episode on scout rifles, and I like the idea of a scout rifle. I like the idea of kind of a do-it-all, bushwhacking rifle. I really, really do. I wish that I could test that concept out like I like to test a lot of concepts out in firearms with a 22. Why does nobody make a 22 with a scout kind of setup? It seems to me it would be pretty easy for somebody to come out with a bolt action, because, let's face it, I know that it's not like a absolute criteria for scout rifles to be bolt action, but it kind of seems like that's the default, and that's what the vast majority are. But how cool would it be to have a 22 long rifle or a 22 Magnum, or both, with a forward-mounted optic, to be mounted in a scout configuration with like a scout sling with two, with the two forward sling mountings for a ching sling. How cool would it be to be able to go out and train with that, with a CZ22 or a Ruger American Scout setup. Ruger does make the Scout rifle. It would be really cool if they made the American, whatever it's called, the Ruger American Rimfire Scout Edition. That'd be pretty cool. A short, handy, let's say 18-inch 22 with iron sights that you could mount a forward-mounted scout scope on. Again, because I'd like to, without dropping a couple of $1,000s, I'd really like to try and test that system out. And if it works on small game stalking and still hunting, and if that scout setup really is quite a bit better than your general purpose rifle with a LPVO, it'd be cool to test that out with a 22. And even if I decided I was going to go to a center fire scout rifle, how cool would it be to be able to train and do the backup stuff with a 22 scout rifle? And I asked the gentleman we had on, the scout rifle expert, we did the whole episode on about that, and he said that he didn't know anybody that made one, and I don't either. Perhaps you guys do. But that would be something really cool to see the market put out. Last, I'll talk about guns that I've seen come across recently that are intriguing to me. I don't think they're for me, but I think they're a good option for a lot of people. Everybody knows the Glock 19, polymer striker fire handgun that holds, 15 rounds. Well, there's a lot of competition to that, and one of the guns that I've seen that have come out recently that I've held in my hands, I haven't actually shot or trained with, but is the Iwi Masada. I think if you were looking for a polymer striker-fired handgun and you weren't going to pimp it out and trick it out like most Glock owners do with a Glock, if you just wanted an in-the-box, good-to-go train with gun, I would be looking hard at the Iwi Masada. It looked like a good gun. It looked like you get quite a bit more for your money. Features that you have to, take a Dremel to get your Glock to have. It seems like that has out of the box. So they seem really intriguing to me. They really stood out to me. Another one, it is polymer, but it is not striker fired. It looks like it would be, but it's actually single action. And it's very affordable. The Ruger Security 9. I think it's got a great trigger for what it is, for what it costs. And if you're looking for some kind of alternative, the Ruger Security 9, they're very affordably priced. They're quite a bit cheaper than a Glock. Again, they're single action, which I prefer to the striker fire system, which if you want a striker fire gun, that's fine. We already, talked about a lot of the Turkish guns. A lot of companies make those. G-Force is one I'm most familiar with, but I haven't heard anything bad about any of those. Turkish-made shotguns really kind of bring it for the money, as we already talked about. Another really cool gun that intrigues me that's on the market is the Schiappa. Schiappa makes some really cheap guns, and they make some really, really high-end guns. Make some guns in the middle. But Marlin, an American company, used to make a takedown, break apart, so it breaks in half, 22 lever action. Well, they don't make it anymore. Schiappa does. And their lever actions are some of their really high-end guns. We're talking $1,000 plus. I don't know what their rimfires cost, but their lever actions have a really, they're rock-solid, not cheap guns. Well, Schiappa makes that, 22 long rifle breakdown, takedown gun. That's a pretty cool gun. They even make one called the Alaskan or the Kodiak or something. It's a little bit nicer with a little bit more impervious finish. But a little takedown backpacking lever action 22. I already have a 1022 takedown that I've run for years and killed I don't know how much stuff with. But the intriguing thing about the lever action is that you can run shorts out of it and CB caps, which you don't need a suppressor for, totally legal, and super, super quiet. As quiet or quieter than most things are with a suppressor. Still deadly on small game. And that's pretty cool. I think there's a place for that in an arsenal. So I just wanted to mention some cool things that are out. With that, guys, I hope you've enjoyed this kind of virtual fireside, coffee chat about guns and state of the gun industry and really good guns that are being made, and some cool guns we wish they would make. This is one I'd really like to hear your feedback on. Again, goodshepherdtraining.com. You don't have to be a patron to send me messages. I try to read all the messages from the patrons and everything. You can just go to Good Shepherd Training, and there's a thing on there to contact me, goodshepherdtraining.com. I'd really like to know, what would you like to see made? We'd all like to see, 9mm at $3.99 a box or $4.99 a box. What cool guns do you wish they would make? What's something that, if you could pick, if you were the CEO of, Ruger, Smith & Wesson, or Colt, you would have them put out? Again, contact me. I'd love to hear it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a review of the podcast. If you want to become a patron and support this podcast, kind of become part of the inner circle. Again, goodshepherdtraining.com. Go to the Patreon link. Check out some cool merch. I designed a shooting shirt that's on there. Really like kind of lightweight, long sleeve shooting shirts for the sun, for catching splashback ricochets from steel targets, things like that. Windburn, sunburn. Anyway, I designed one on there with the word at the center. Got a Bible verse on it. Anyway, again, goodshepherdtraining.com. With that, I want to say thanks for listening. Tactical tip for the day as a thanks for listening till the end. Buying used guns. Unless you really don't know anything about guns, don't be afraid to buy used guns. Don't be afraid to, like we said, buy a used polymer striker fire handgun, or buy a used Glock, or buy especially a used shotgun. Look at the common placers of those where, if you know what those are, like let's say a barrel hood. You can generally look at something and in about 2 seconds know how much it's been shot. Many people buy a gun and put a box or a part of a box of ammo through it, and that's it. And then it sits by their bedside, and then go through some life change or dating somebody that doesn't like guns, and they sell that gun. You can get a used gun for a heck of a deal sometimes. And if it's from a reputable manufacturer, a lot of times, even if it does break or it has a problem, send it right back to them, and they'll usually replace it at no cost. I can't promise that because it depends on the manufacturer, but a lot of times they'll fix it. So again, look at it. The parts that rub together, that's going to give you a pretty good idea. Let's say the tactical tip of the day. Look at the barrel hood on a semi-automatic handgun. You see wear marks in it. You see grooves in it. A real common one for Glocks is they'll let you take the slide off, take it apart. Glocks come from the factory with this like copper-colored grease. Don't know what it is. Never seen it anywhere else. It's like proprietary to them. But they generally put it on a couple places in the slide. If you take that Glock apart and you still see that in there and it's still like copper colored, that means that thing has barely been shot at all. And you're going to shoot. Here's the thing about guns. If you're a gunfighter, you're going to shoot that thing hopefully as soon as you get it. What difference does it make? Save the money on it. If you're looking for something that's been carried a lot as opposed to shot a lot, look at the very front of the gun near the front sight or towards the front of the barrel, and you'll see if it's been rubbed. That will give you an indication on how many times it's been drawn or put away from a holster. If that looks pristine, the barrel hood looks pristine, what's that saying? Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. There's a lot of people recently buying new guns, and I gotta think that some of them are selling those guns. Likewise, if you're buying a pump shotgun or a semi-automatic shotgun from a reputable manufacturer, unless it looks like it's been drugged behind a truck and it's covered in rust, those things just run. I wouldn't even worry about it if you get a good deal on it. And ARs are everywhere right now. Like I said, the market's soft. There's a lot of used ones on the market. An easy one for this, there's really no way to tell if they've run that cheap Russian ammo with the bimetal jacket on it. I don't like that stuff. I know a lot of people do. I don't run it in my guns. You could ask, but there's really no way to tell. But if they'll let you, just pop the rear pin out, break the AR open, pull the bolt out. If the bolt is supposed to be black and it's like half silver, yeah, that thing's probably been ridden hard and put away wet. You take it out and there's just a few small silver streaks on that bolt carrier where it's barely been run at all. If that extractor still looks good and pristine and black, it's not all worn down, don't be afraid to buy it. Obviously, if it's a rifle, look in the bore, make sure it's not rusty or anything like that, or any kind of thing like that inside the bore. But the finishes on ARs today are pretty awesome, and it's rare that I see one with rust on it. With that, men, the tactical verse of the day. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. Humble yourself, therefore, under the mighty hand of God, that he may exalt you in due time. casting all your cares upon him, because he cares for you. Be sober and vigilant, because your adversary the devil prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he may devour. Thanks, men. Have a blessed day.